So it's a beefy one. Yeah, it looks like a beefy one. It's another one that wouldn't fit in Steam. So question I think I've noticed. Let me switch over here. Maybe I'm just stupid. These seem to get published on Steam on Tuesdays, but I noticed last week too, it says Friday. Do I need to keep an eye on the forums and to do these early? Like I could be doing these on Sunday. On Sunday streams instead, potentially. Or we could just keep doing them on Tuesday. If I'm stupid and I should have been doing this on the weekend, let me know. But anyway, let me take a sip of my coffee and we can get right into it. I am recording for YouTube. Hello YouTube. If you made it this far. I say that, but the last VOD of the Dev Diaries is doing pretty well for me, so that's exciting. All right. Landless Adventurers Part 2. Welcome back, comrades, to Landless Adventurers Part 2. I'm Wokeg, and last week we went over the general core gameplay, what we expect you to be doing, where the resources come from, and what you'll spend them on. This week we're going over literally everything else. Just like last time, everything shown here is a work in progress. Features won't shift massively, but values and occasionally modifiers or parameters will. Cost gains and some requirements in particular will all be going active adjustment at present. Looking for news and found your VODs covering the last dev diary and thought, oh hey, it's Coffee Kuma. Hey, it's working. Hey Viper, good to see you. This is going to be quite a disjointed dev diary, so please bear with me while I skip around the whole damn feature like a wanderer running from town to town desperately fleeing the Black Death. I love this graphic here. This is great. I peaked about as far as this. Gow! 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 Bear with you. Bear with me. Bear with me. I am the bear. I am with me. This is actually a cool point. Like trying to outrun the plague or any plague as a traveler sounds really interesting. Um, every adventurer on the map has a reason for being. A thing that unites their group and drives them onwards. This is their camp purpose, and it replaces the otherwise redundant Crown Authority law for landless adventurers. No point for authority if you're a small band of. I was gonna say band of idiots. I don't know why. We added 6 camp purposes in Roads to Power, specifically Wanderers, Swords for Hire, Scholars, Explorers, Freebooters, and Legitimists. Yeah, Brigands. That's what I thought that meant. We saw this one last week. I'm very curious, like what these different some of these do, because I was saying last week, Wanderers and Explorers seem redundant a little bit. Maybe Wanderers is just more generic than Explorers, but I guess I wonder what Explorers. They explain all of them this time around. Good, good, good. I would hope so. Each one comes with different weightings on what type of contracts you're likely to find. Different upgrades for their camp buildings and different flavorization that controls their title and type of clothes their followers will wear. Interesting. Except a lot more glasses and humble clothing for scholars, weapons and armor for swords for hire, animal furs and muted outfits for freebooters, and so on. The default is Wanderers, I was right, which is what we consider the vanilla experience, but each of the 5 others are slightly tailored to different playstyles. Wanderers found equal amounts of contracts of every type, and non-historical adventurers will always start as them. Their main special feature is that they can switch to any other purpose type for free, whereas the other types must pay 1k prestige for the privilege. That makes sense. That makes sense from a balance perspective. I'm stuck on there's historical wanderers. That's really cool. Not historical adventurers. Cool. I don't know who there would be at any of the start dates, but when there's a new start date too, I completely forgot. That completely left my mind until just now. Uh, Adventurers with the Swords for Hire camp purpose are aimed primarily at mercenary work. They find more martial and prowess contracts, as well as many more offers to help out with wars. Their camp upgrades focus on making them better at fighting. Oh, the camp upgrades change. This is very much like the Roger de Fleur experience, though hopefully you'll have a happier end. Cheaper embarkation, more mercenary contracts, more prowess and martial. Unlocks these camp upgrades: engineers, lock wagon, palisade builders, ditch digging. Can access certain special officers, a siege engineer, and a master of spoils. Earn their coin first and foremost by the sword, usually legally, but when times are tough and all you have is an axe, right? Makes sense. Scholars specialize in learning and stewardship contracts and have the most varied camp upgrades. They're intended to play a little bit like the early life of Michael Scott. You roam from place to place, educating the children of nobility, picking up the finest minds you can find, and creating works of learning. An untrustworthy scholar may be found selling fake relics or collecting taxes under fake pretenses. As a scholar, you're unlikely to win any great battles, but you might help create great rulers, and you could earn yourself a solid plot of land somewhere with time. Huh. I guess you got Ahmed the Fodlan, though he's kind of in between the two current start dates. I mean, they could. It's possible they could stretch things a little bit. Why am I getting notifications? Oh, because I texted my roommate about something. That's right. Monthly lifestyle experience. Oh, just lifestyle experience, not any particular type. Find more learning and stewardship contracts, more diplomacy contracts. Reference corpus, morticians, tools, siege engineers, loyal scribes, drifting ascetics, nightly debates, martial study. Interesting. There's some overlap too, which I guess makes sense. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to put music on. Let me fix that. It's gonna get loud, so let me adjust my volume. Forgive my scuff. And throw that on shuffle. Great. Explorers get more transport contracts, diplomacy contracts, and intrigue. AI explorers also roam much further than other AI adventurers, and their upgrades help with schemes, provisions uses, and mountain fighting. A dishonest explorer might defraud a ruler or rob their home of its silverware. These are typed a bit more after Ibn Battuta or Marco Polo. Sadly, Crusader Kings involves no terra incognita, so we can't give you the full experience of finding new lands. But they're still a solid pick for characters who want to cross the map with relative ease, and very much the camp purpose for choose a new Destiny characters in search of distant land to earn their fortune in. Ooh, travel speed up, sea and coastal sea danger. More transport contracts, more martial, more diplomacy and intrigue. Reserve provisions, reserve water, climbing gear, local hatch hangers on, extra watches. Interesting. Freebooters, as they call themselves, or brigands as everyone else refers to them, find more prowess and intrigue contracts as well as criminal contracts of every kind. Their upgrades give bonuses to schemes generally, unlock officers that are generally good at criminal activity, give hefty bonuses for high intrigue, and can help you reduce the cost of lowering your gallows bait, which, as you may remember from last time, is the petty criminality negative fame trait you get and level up, making people hate you more from taking criminal contracts. That was a hard sentence. With freebooters, we were trying to keep in mind the underclassed, the recidivist?
Recidivist.
Recidivist, okay. Convicted criminal who reoffends. Thank you, Google. And the scum of the earth, all the types of characters you rarely see make it into the history books. That is, of course, unless such a bandit grows so large they manage to steal a kingdom. Something that you can naturally attempt yourself, but depending on how bad your gallows bait is, you may find ruling any lands you gain much more difficult than controlling petty outlaws. That could be a fun challenge. Take a bandit kingdom, maybe stay tribal, become raiders. Real scum shit. Scummy shit. Finds more criminal contracts of all kinds, finds more prowess and intrigue contracts, unlocks camp upgrades, subdued gear, mortician's tools, ransom cages, negotiators, juicy rumors. Lockwagon, the stick game. What is the stick game? It contains special officers, a master thief, a manhaggler, and a master of spoils. Last but by no means, we have Legitimus. This one I'm also curious about too, because it seems like a lot of the other ones you can still get land. It'd be interesting to switch camp type, like starting out freebooter, switch to adventure, and eventually travel away from your crimes and settle down in a different continent. Yeah. Mend the schism, evil, kill the Pope and Patriarch in the single life. Last by no means least, we have Legitimus. This camp purpose is a bit special. These are your exiled king returns with an army types. They require an adventurer to have at least one pressed claim against a kingdom tier title of some kind, and so are not open to mere former dukes or counts. Oh. Unlike the rest of the camp purposes, they're also explicitly intended to be for players and AI who don't want to stay adventuring for any length of time under any circumstances. Legitimists have a goal in mind, and they will have it within their lifetime, whether it be a throne they lost or a crown they consider theirs by right. Legitimists have no weight on what contracts they receive, but instead have a unique contract where other rulers will offer them support on their quest in exchange for gold upon its completion. These benefactors will offer money and troops, but always expect a return on their investment in the form of a payout after your victory. Huh. Can use request legitimate support interactions on kings and emperors. Can use claim CB. Find a unique legitimate support contract. Unlocks camp upgrade. Grand aspirations. Bodyguard drills. Lockwagon scribes. Proof of claims. Can obtain a witness and a master of spoils. Legitimists may also proactively ask for this aid instead of being offered it, in which case you'll need to stump up a hefty sum of prestige for an audience with your prospective sponsor. After a time limit between 4 and 8 years, depending on how negotiations go, each backer will start to become antsy and begin requesting their return. This gives you a final chance to launch your invasion with whatever you have readied, try to negotiate a delay, or else face the penalties. If you renege, you'll start losing entire prestige levels per backer. Jeez. As well as other assorted nasty ill effects. After all, at that point, you're simply an ineffective would-be usurper. Likewise, taking their money and troops and then changing your camp purpose or landing yourself with less than a suitable claim will also be counted as failing to attempt follow-through. They're offering support, but it has strings attached. So you can't... If you have multiple claims, you can't ask for support with your kingdom claim and then grab a duchy that you also happen to have claims on. That makes sense. I mean, you can, but there'll be penalties. Of course, you can launch your claim war before the timer is passed. The timer is simply a deadline for doing so. We expect legitimacy to be for players who treat adventurers as a stepping stone. Perhaps you use Choose a New Destiny to come in as a favored younger child with no lands, flip them into a legitimate adventurer, and are now trying to go back and reclaim your old kingdom from its AI ruler. Perhaps you started in a tricky position and got wiped by a greater power early on, but won't let your dream die there. It's really fun seeing the way that these definitely seem to be balanced towards the extreme end of difficulty. Yeah. Aside from paying the assorted costs, switching between camp purposes can be done at will. Any camp upgrades that aren't valid for any new chosen purpose are automatically demolished, which, as mentioned in last dev diary, gives a partial refund of the cost. We want to encourage people to try playing different purposes, especially if you're an adventurer for a long time, rather than picking one and sticking to it. Different characters can mean different things for your camp and encourage slightly different ways to play. Mercenaries in particular find it hard to get off the ground without a little seed money, and as such can benefit from time spent as freebooters or explorers till they can afford to build an army. Sure, makes sense. In addition to this, each camp purpose has a small handful of events tied to it, plus special options with certain other events, plus special options within certain other events. Event-based contracts in particular will sometimes contain entire alternate rewards for specific camp purposes, even outside of their specialties. Lastly, designing camp purposes like this gives us a handy means of letting players opt in for the type of adventuring content they want to engage with, rather than leaving it entirely down to RNG. This is something we've especially mindful of these enlightened post-Roko times, Royal Court, partially why we've tried to theme the purposes so heavily after different types of playstyle. Right. Because that is the flaw with the Royal Court, is things just happen. And they're often pretty meaningless. Get some more coffee here. The key challenge with making landless adventurers accessible was giving you diegetic ways to switch into them without just requiring you to lose your whole realm each time. This wouldn't work for veteran players because who the hell manages to lose Crusader Kings 3 that hard once they've mastered the basics? And it wouldn't work for newbies because just trying to figure out what the hell a vassal is and now I've not got any, and you've shunted me in a completely different game mode. Right. That's that's the weird thing about Crusader Kings is it's how do I want to put this? It's a game with a really steep learning curve, although maybe not as steep as other Paradox games or even other Crusader Kings games. But Crusader Kings 3 is a really easy game once you learn the basics. It's really hard to game over. And I'm not the only person to say this, so this is not entirely my original thought, but being able to become an adventurer might make it even harder to game over. Big part of the praise for CK3 was making it very accessible, but also at the same time, it's not really that difficult. Yeah, even harder now with landless, exactly. Instead, what we've tried to do is provide a broad variety of paths to switch into adventuring. Yes, you can do it if you lose your whole realm, and likewise you can opt not to become adventurer, simply switching to a landed player heir if you've got one, or entering observe mode otherwise. But we've also tried to add ways for you to either proactively become one or else junctions where you might want to consider it. Oh. Wait. How cool would it be? I didn't even consider this until just now. How cool would it be to play a couple generations or even a couple decades in Byzantium as an admin vassal, and then kind of just go fuck it and become a mercenary? Fight your way through, I don't know, the Balkans? And then come back and just pick up a title again. Especially for admin, because you don't hold on to those titles anyway. I wonder how that works. I'm assuming they go into this, but... The one thing that all ways to become an adventurer share is that, like it or not, the would-be adventurer is undergoing an ignoble transition. They lose almost all their stored prestige, as well as 3 full prestige levels. Oof. This is both a narrative penalty, a way to guarantee at least some potential for growth, and a way to stop famous characters that become adventurers from simply immediately trying to steamroll the HRE with powerful CVs. Sure, okay. We'll let you try to pull off the mother of all coups or invasions, but you'll have to work for it. I can see some cool stuff. I wonder if they're going to rework Varangian Adventures. The Varangian Adventure CV. The simplest way to become a landless adventurer is on Succession, via the Choose a New Destiny feature. I believe we've talked about this previously, but as a reminder for anyone who might have missed it, this allows you to pick a character within your dynasty continue as other than your normal player heir. Suitably interesting landless family members will be shown the option to immediately become adventurers. This is great. You play a newbie island, you conquer Ireland. You don't really feel like you have anything else to do. You become an adventurer and you go mercenary on the continent. Or you go exploring or whatever. Laughs knowingly, excellent. This is Prince Magnus. This looks like England. Duke Grith. I don't remember these crests, but I think this is Lustig of Godwin. I mean, I'm assuming England because of that name, but I could be wrong. Of course, this is just the player. Ambitious, restless, or otherwise driven AI characters left with no land after a succession will sometimes spontaneously leave to form their own adventuring companies. Is more skillful than heir. Yeah, oh yeah. I was looking at this too. Would be under new liege, would be under a new liege. More skillful than heir. Has a landed heir. Holds important claims. Holds press claims. More skillful than heir. I mean, this is interesting. If you have many children, especially several who are far down the line of succession, some of them may ask for your permission to embark on as an adventurer. Particularly driven characters would rather seek their fortune on the broader world rather than sitting back for decade after decade in comfortable irrelevance while waiting for an inheritance that will likely never come. My son Nud has grown restless of late, and I'm hardly surprised when he corners me one evening as we gaze out over the farmland of Roskilde. Father, he sighs wistfully, looking out to the horizon. I'm tired of castles. I want to get out there. See the world. I want to make my own mark on it. He seems genuinely determined, animated with enthusiasm I've not seen in him or anyone else for quite some time. You do House Estrid proud? If you must go, I won't keep you here, or don't be ridiculous. Definitely something where we'll have to see the algorithm working in game to see how good it is. Yeah, absolutely. An adult child who won't inherit and is young enough to dream asks for permission to form his own adventuring company. You may recognize this as the artwork for Wandering Nobles. The key art for that event pack is still being worked on, so the current one here is a placeholder. Okay. Denmark mention. Even if you deny them, some will still run away. Run away anyway. After all, they won't be asking if they weren't serious about it, whether you allow them or forbid them. Any that will give you the option to switch to playing as your renegade child. Any that do will give you the option to switch to playing as your renegade child. As I rise the next morning, the argument with Nud still weighing on my mind, I'm informed that the humble bugger disappeared overnight. The fool disobeyed my explicit wishes to go off into the wilderness and play with a band of rogues. The insolent brat certainly has some spirit. In all 3 starting dates, various historical adventurers and are prescripted and selectable directly from the bookmark screen. For those, we've tried not to add every famous person who wasn't a ruler, instead focusing on the most notable and those who fit one of our camp purposes, and who we might at least attempt to represent semi-faithfully. I'm on the fence about this, and maybe I'm being overly critical, so take this with a grain of salt. But I almost wish, and I know why they didn't, I almost wish if they did represent every famous unlanded
Do I go on
character.
as the brain-dead ruler on the throne, or become their landed brother and work to become their regent? Get yourself entrenched or entrench your blade.
Yeah, or... Yeah, I was going to say or Mercenary Company, but I feel like I've repeated that. I really want to play Mercenary Companies. I think that sounds like a really exciting element to the game that I've wanted since CK2. I said this last week. I almost wish they did add every famous person who wasn't a ruler, and fit the camp purposes to represent those characters semi-faithfully. But I understand that's a lot more work. Person who's only seen Berserk, I really want to play as a mercenary. Why you gotta call me out like this? Why you gotta call me out like this? Look, I know how that goes. I've read to update. You have mentioned it 4 times in the last Dev Diary. It just seems fun, okay? If you inherit as a 1s and 0s, you're almost better off being the vassal kin. Yeah. With the slight exception of Prince Elfwine in 1066, who is definitely just quietly minding his own business at a church in southern France, but who we've given an adventuring camp to anyways because someone asked us nicely, we took a lot of the more niche suggestions for those in a forum thread a while back. Of course, we couldn't take everyone suggested here, and I expect we'll add more post-release when the internet points out the people we doubtless missed in our initial sweep. Okay. I'll accept that. Person who's very into Fire Emblem 3 Houses I really want to play as Byleth von Fire Emblem. I also want to play the queer polycule mercenaries for hire. You get it. You get it. I mean, again, I know how it ends. But I'm up to date. Would be fun. Lest we forget, since I did a screenshot of it last Dev Diary, you can create an adventure directly from the bookmarks directions screen with the ruler designer. Discord is full of queer polycules. Are we? Do we have that many polycules in the Discord? Not to challenge you on that, but I don't. Landless Ruler update got me into CK3 again. I modded it to add Pride Flag colors mod. That's right. I saw that comment. That's so cool. Mistress Walada of the Thieves of Pleasure. What a good name. Strategos Constinios. Strategos Leon. Oh, these are estate locations, so these are admin vassals. But unlanded. Master Tolo, Seekers of the Truth. Georgie of the Kokon. Elfwine of the Great Baron Jarrett. The what? Tending to pharyngiate. Pharyngiatory. That's a made-up word. That word's not real. Hush Bear, I'm trying to advert and it worked. Peregrinatory. It's British English, so it's a fake word. Changes to the bookmark screen showing camps and states alike, as well as the create your own adventurer button. Oh yeah, right here. Create your own ruler, create your own adventurer. Of course it isn't real, it's because English isn't a real language. English is a real language, it's just a fake made-up language. Well, I guess that means it's not real. I don't know. A fake made-up language. For some people, the rule of adventuring is strong even for those who've already got land, just as long as they don't have very much of it. And for these cultures, we've added a decision to abandon their small realms and take to the road. Since only small, low-ish tier rulers can take the decision, you'll never see the High King of the North Sea voluntarily abandoning his empire to go backpacking around the Caucasus. The following tenants have access: Struggle and Submission and Fayadine. Only those? I feel like... okay. We're also currently considering giving access to some or all of Vows of Poverty, Aestheticism, and Medicine Preachers. Okay. I needed to read. These are partial tonal fills, but not entirely, so we're wavering a bit on whether to give them the option too. As well as them, we've also given it to the following cultural traditions. With Pua, Horse Lords, Heerd, Swords for Hire, Coastal Warrior. Okay. Right, these are tenants. Sorry, I was thinking this was a short list for cultures. Cultural traditions. Yes, makes sense. For those bold and hardy enough to traverse its perils and grasp its opportunities, the wide world can offer much. All your landed titles pass to a new ruler, you establish an adventurer camp, you gain prestige, you gain voluntary adventurer, must be an adult, not imprisoned, house must not be househead of a noble family, are not a landless ruler. Aww. So I can't do it as an admin character? You must not be a head of faith. You must be a counter duke. Your domain must be no larger than 3 counties. At least one of these. Your culture has a tradition with these. Or your religion has these tenets. Okay. Decision for smaller rulers to become an adventurer. With roads to power, Normans now have the audacious cadets tradition, among various other Normandy things, like making them much more eager warmongers and buffing their heavy cav. This both enables the decision to abandon your lands and encourage the younger sons of barons to frequently go off and seek their fortune abroad, like the de Hautevilles and countless others. The Swords for Hire cultural tradition likewise causes otherwise irrelevant young characters to seek their fortunes abroad. That's the second time I've made that mistake with those words. These two together means that we now see a distressingly historical flood of Normans adventuring in Western Europe and Turks adventuring in Middle East and Eastern Europe. Sick. Rich wanderers and interesting wanderers. These two are AI specific, but occasionally we end up with cool characters wandering the map as guests that have just ungodly amounts of gold on them. Yes. Now, sometimes these characters will decide that the cash is burning a hole in their pocket and use it to found an adventuring company instead. If a poor character ends up in the pool but they have a particularly interesting personality or even just claims, they may also spontaneously become a landless adventurer, just a somewhat poorer one. Love this. Losing your last title. Lastly, of course, you can always become an adventurer the classic way that I'm sure you're all expecting. If you lose your last county and you're not an admin family, you'll be given the option to continue with that character by forming an adventuring band instead of the game overing or switching to someone new. The AI will sometimes do this too if their personality suits it. Oh, having an AI adventurer running around of the kingdom that you just conquered, whole cloth, sounds so fun. And kind of scary. Me seducing Duchess Matilda so she pretty please funds my adventuring company full of bisexual woman knights. Yes. The AI rival coming back with vengeance. Love that. This can be the result of title revocation, conquest, or even exile. The character's last title is stripped away, and they're either a player or suitably driven individual. You can see them pop back up as an adventurer. Once and former king, foul anonymous defeat. This wretched claymore has taken everything from me. I'm cast out into the wilderness while King Hraldr and his soldiers celebrate their victory. We've lost the English throne, and that greedy ogre may this very moment be taking over the regalia of my kingdom. One day I'll reclaim my lands, everything falls to Lothwine. Hostig much for our house's future. We look to Edmund now, or this time has passed. This is gonna do wonders for the Game of Thrones mod? Yeah. Problem with becoming an adventurer was, how do we make this more accessible without requiring people to jump through hoops? Problem with moving from being an adventurer to being landed is more like, how do we make this less accessible than immediately just launching a conquest war in the first weak independent duchy you see? If moving out of adventuring is too easy, then it's got no narrative weight, and the difference between landed and landless isn't too keenly felt. If it's too difficult to do it, then adventuring risks becoming a chore rather than a way to vary your play. Right, I mean, this is still a concern. And at the end of the day, we're just gonna have to see how it's implemented, but what we've tried to accomplish with becoming landed again, then, is giving you a sliding scale of options. You probably can find a weak or terrible county somewhere that you can conquer or buy for not that much effort, but you're moving into a fixer-upper. Especially if you used to be a king or more, it's not exactly glorious. If you want something greater, you should have to work for it a little. As with becoming a landless adventurer, there are many paths to leaving life on the road. Some violent, some not. As a general rule of thumb, the thing most have in common is that the size of the realm you're trying to acquire is gated by your prestige level. Adventurers with less fame are at best upstarts, no matter how many gold or troops they have. Oh, I just got a failure is now optional. That's absolutely true. I don't remember the name of the kingdom I'm thinking of, but could be really fun to play as the king in, or even one of his vassals, in the Pannonian Basin prior to the Magyar invasions, the Magyar migration, and then try to kick the Hungarians out later. Oh, it's Bulgaria. Bulgaria owns it. That's right. Play one of Bulgaria's vassals in that region. I'm forgetting the culture group. Yeah, because Bulgaria still exists, but so not the king. I'm forgetting the other culture's name for that kingdom. Try to reform. Maybe it's just Pannonia. Wallachian? Well, there's Vault. There's Volch. I don't remember how to say it. But I thought there was another culture in that area that gets replaced. I'm looking on my game map, but we're too late in the game for it to still be around. Maybe it is Vlach. Anyway, playing as a displaced, it's going to make certain realms more accessible if you can become an adventurer and try to reclaim your land after losing the historical war. Or even the Godwin family, Godwin sons. First and most obvious way to get out of this adventuring life is the same way almost all characters get land: inheritance. Adventurers inheriting land immediately lose their camp, with the partial refunds we mentioned for demolishing buildings, and shift into their new realm. For the purpose of inheritance, adventurers are counted as landless courtiers, so they aren't excluded by higher crown authority. For those of you who don't want to just inherit back into land, we've invented the Gallivanter trait, obtainable via the reject inheritance decision. This essentially works like voluntary disinheritance, where you recluse yourself from inheriting your other titles from your dynasty, but can still obtain them via conquest, character interactions, etc. We'll go into the Gallivanter trait a bit more in the decision sections of the dev diary, but with a little something extra for the HRE players who have tired of getting elected emperor against their will too. Ooh. Hold on, I'm going to, it's bothering me now. I'm going to CK3 867 culture map. Why is this loading so slowly? Avar. To play an Avar character. That's the culture I'm thinking of. Play an Avar vassal of Bulgaria. And become an exile after the Magyar invasion. I think that would be a really interesting campaign. Shut up, dog. Oh, I need to move out. Getting so frustrated with this apartment. Adventurers cannot access most common CBs. Legitimists may use the claim CB, but that's a bit of a niche cause for many, not least because becoming legitimist requires a kingdom claim or better. And that's a bit of a niche case for many, and your choice of target is naturally constrained. As you have no realm priest, you cannot fabricate new claims on command, nor would anyone take you seriously if you did. Good. Instead, our landless wanderers have access to the new Adventurer Invasion CB, which works fairly similarly to some of the other Invasion CBs. You select an existing target held by a character or one of their vassals and conquer or usurp anything within that title. If this is their only top-tier title, you'll attempt to conquer the realm as a whole. Naturally, any ruler achieved this way is extremely illegitimate. Yeah, no court chaplain to manufacture for you. Caveat here is that, as I've mentioned, we gate what you can attack by your prestige level. Targeting a county only requires your fame to be distinguished, a duchy needs illustrious, a kingdom requires exalted among men, and an empire mandates you be a living legend. You can invasion CB empires? That's huge. That's so big. Also expanding on the legitimacy system, hopefully making it just that more integrated. I would like legitimacy to matter a little more. Yeah. I mean, I'm imagining it's very hard to become a living legend as an adventurer. But the fact that you can theoretically do empire invasions, that's nasty. As adventurers don't have too many prestige outflows, and because they're operating from a much weaker legal position of might makes right than even a lowly tribal chief, we've made the CBs extremely expensive. You can of course find discounts via lifestyle perks, cultural traditions, all the usual ways, but going from 0 to ruler is something that we want you to save up for. Finally, we're currently testing porting some mechanics from the Sea's Realm scheme, more on that below, into the Adventure Invasion CB. It caused large realms to fragment, with vassals declaring unilateral independence in response to your assault. Interesting. We're not 100% sure whether these will make it into the release or not yet. They were designed to work with the scheme initially after all, but playtesting has shown that we need a little more oomph to our consequences when a dedicated player adventurer inevitably manages to take down a major realm. Really love what they do with the Landed Empire CB. Yeah, this is really cool. Of course, not every adventurer is determined to carve out a realm for themselves alone. If you're smart and at least a little humble, then you can help your odds by finding a sponsor. This is a king or higher who will pledge either to loan you soldiers or, if they really like you, to fight by your side. Should you win, your legitimacy won't be quite as cataclysmic either. Ooh. Interesting. An adventurer seeks support from the Byzantines to become landed, promising vassalship for the Empire's support. In exchange, you'll become your sponsor's vassal on success, a small price to pay for security and aid, surely. The idea of an Empire CB that doesn't secure you all of the de jure of the Empire due to vassals gaining independence. I do like that a lot, yeah. Finding a sponsor requires a prestige level of illustrious, but as you can imagine, most rulers are quite open to the idea of gaining a little land, so it's not too difficult to find someone willing to take advantage of you. They don't need your help with lesser realms, so you can only receive sponsorship against a kingdom or an empire. Kingdom, or if you declare for an empire, though... Oh, against a kingdom or empire. Right. Never mind. I was going to say something kind of silly. Inside feudal clan and even tribal realms, you've got the direct route of cold hard coin. A county is somewhat affordable, but purchasing a duchy will cost you a fortune. No character will sell you a kingdom. Purchasing land from a ruler is reasonably circumstantial, but still doable. They won't part with lands for just any reason, especially if those lands are dear to them. The wealthier a county or duchy is, the more closely it aligns with their faith and culture, especially if you do not, and the further away from their capital it is, the more malices they'll pack on that. Even offering double your sum may not help with. A double, 2,400. Gain stress because you're greedy. Gain ennobled adventurer for 30 years. Through their abysmal opinion of you. Closer weed too. I see that ads are coming up. Of course, if you're very far from home, you can always try to sway scheme, perhaps adopt the local faith and or learn your target's language, as well as offering more money or picking a less valuable place to buy. Alternatively, find a larger realm or kingdom with less ties to all its people, and see who'll sell you your plot, or look for a frontier region whose people don't match their current ruler. Provided your new business partner's tier is higher than yours, you'll buy in as their vassal. This is going to be historically. This is said the historically Vikings. This fits very well, but I'm sure it's happened in other situations as well. All right, we're running out of time for ads, so I'm gonna do a cut here. Inside administrative realms, land works a little differently. The great magnates have their estates, sure, but they don't directly own entire counties in the same way other rulers do. Instead of purchasing a title from an admin realm directly, you require permission to purchase a sizable estate of your own, turning you into another one of the realm's great families. From here, you enter the influence game and can compete for your own governance, maybe even the empire itself, as usual, a bit as an outsider for some time. You require permission to purchase a sizable estate of your own. Do you gain permission from the emperor, or? Interesting. This is overall actually quite a bit easier than finding someone to sell you a discrete title. You're simply investing your wealth in property, and no one really believes a foreigner will thrive in the cutthroat world of ministerial politics. Naturally, a requirement for any prospective subject here is to adopt the state faith. If you won't meet the state's requirements for a citizen, you can remain a dirty barbarian. Checks out. Uniquely, adventurers can choose themselves as their beneficiary in a great holy war. Yo. This means a suitably vicious mercenary company could, under the right circumstances, transition into a very effective Kingdom of Jerusalem. Shout out to Allerton on the forums for correctly guest questioning this one week ahead of time. And set yourself up as the beneficiary of a holy war. That's so cool. As a landed ruler, you don't have to wait for an adventurer to approach you about your domain, whether they're carrying sword or silver. If you wish, you can try to settle them yourself. This does require that they're either presently camped in your realm or at war with you. This allows you to both retain an adventurer that may have won your tournament you housed, and to sabotage an opponent's mercenary army by rewarding them with territory. Other than the land you give away, this will cost you some legitimacy, but provided you give them a lower title, the newly minted lordling will become your vassal. All of this is so good. I agree. Finally be able to be attorney knight proper. Yes! I've wanted to do a campaign like that, but it was so difficult to just find excuses to travel. See, last of all, we have the Seize Realm scheme. This is extremely powerful because it allows you to usurp another realm in a high-stakes coup, a bit with difficult requirements. Target's tier has to have the same requirement logic as the Adventurer Invasion CB, although it cannot target admin realms, so you'll need to have acquired ample prestige. Actually getting agents to support you will probably take a bit of cash and assorted other resources, but with such prizes on the line. The major caveat to attempting to seize realm is that there will be those who resist. You may seize the throne, but especially in large realms with hefty cultural and religious fault lines, many parts of the realm are likely to splinter away. Generally not enough to render your effort pointless, but certainly enough to provide you with a challenge in the form of reunification. After a successful Seize Realm scheme, an adventurer whose prestige level is at least exalted finds that large portions of the realm splinter off from their usurpation. I love this graphic. It's so nice to see France splintered. It's just a divided France is a good France. As noted earlier, we're looking into cross-porting this to the Adventurer CB invasion at the moment. Adventurer Invasion CB at the moment. When you become landed, you gain the newly relocated Veteran Adventurer trait. This is the former Adventurer trait and reflects your learnings and life experience from your time living outside the structures of landed life. Because it's got some fairly powerful bonuses that we don't want to reduce or balance around, we've made the trait a reward for concluding your journey rather than a welcome prize for merely setting out on it. Your camp is liquidated, returning a portion of the gold spent to you, and you keep any followers you had as adventurer as your new courtiers. Yes, of course. Your former comrades all get a simple trait to let you know who was with you in the wilderness. Thanks for the hydrate. Diplomacy, opinion of followers, opinion of veteran adventurers. So not really a huge trait, but... When an adventurer receives land, their followers get a trait marking them as former members of their camp. Edgar the Exile's children and wife in 1066 now begin with this trait to represent that they functionally lived as his followers adventuring around Eastern and Central Europe before their recent-ish return to England. Alright, let's go over the military differences for landless adventurers. As with how they earn gold, we've tried to emphasize that the composition of adventuring party is a bit different to normal landed play. Their troops are much more likely to be veterans fighting wars and bandits semi-constantly, so they have a greater emphasis on men-at-arms. They're able to pick up fighters wherever they go, so they have a patchwork of formations of many different regiment types, and they don't have access to levies or lesser noblemen to fill out their units, so they have to take a more active role in recruitment. I love all of this. It's going to mean when you get your Kingdom CB that isn't the end of things. Some say you CB the super empire you've been making all game with a new character only for all of it to shatter apart because of the cultural drift. So now you've started a new campaign called Reconquer Your Lost Land. Ah. The Swords for Hire Camp Purpose obviously specialize in this type of thing, but both freebooters and surprisingly scholars can make a pretty good go of it too, at least in smaller conflicts. And any adventurer can try their hand at mercenary work if they're so inclined. As standard, adventurers buy troops in the usual manner from the military stream. Various buildings in their camp increase how many regiments they can have and of what size, so you'll rarely see an adventurer with just a pavilion and no other camp buildings around it yet. Various buildings in the camp increase how many regiments they can have, so you'll rarely... Okay. Mercenaries just getting started will likely want to take a few non-warfare contracts to begin to help build up these foundations, as well as grow their role of patrons. Patrons are uniquely useful because you can request they provide you with men-at-arms regiments. Ooh. We'll go into the make a request interaction in a later section, helping you to fill out your company's basic building blocks. Additionally, and a bit more exotically, a lifestyle learning perk, Take the Custom Where It Comes, allows adventurers to buy men-at-arms from the culture of their current location. This is so cool. This is such a cool perk. I know I was freaking out over this last week too. Elephantry are recruitable only if you have the Elephantry Reserve upgrade for the Proving Grounds camp building, or are lucky enough to receive them from a patron. This can only be built if you're in a region with tameable elephants, India or Southeast Asia. If you want elephants, and who doesn't want elephants, you're going to need to go and get them. Ongoing expenses. Unlike landed rulers, even tribal, adventurers don't pay to maintain their troops. It is assumed that you're paid partially in provisions, partially in loot they take as you move, and partially in a share of gold paid by your contract givers. As with not expanding provisions when not traveling, this was something we went with after our early testing. Gold can be very feast or famine for adventurers, so if they have a steady expense but they're having trouble finding even a regular income, or is usually the case simply aren't getting paid in advance, they rapidly become extremely frustrating to play. Okay. Landless adventurers are shockingly rather lacking in land. They have no vassals, they have no peasants, they have no burghers, nor any subjects to draw on. When you're building an army, this is a bit of a problem, because who's going to soldier for some guy in a tent? Instead of reinforcing automatically, which means drawing from a reserve that they lack, adventurers have a pair of interaction they use to reinforce their armies by paying different sorts of currency. Oh. Oh, I love that. You have to do recruitment drives. That's really gonna make losses feel so much more significant. Adventurers can access their reinforcement interaction directly from the military view. Most cost-effectively, soldiers can be accrued for gold, but you can also lure in recruits with provisions in a pinch. As the interactions do have a short cooldown of a couple of years, adventurers can generally bounce back fairly well once, before they need to start being very careful with their troops. The cost for either option scale with the amount of troops you're missing. If you lack sufficient gold or provisions to rebuild your forces, you can partially reinforce whatever you have. Men-at-arms regiments gain 100 soldiers, fully reinforced lose 33 gold. Of course, if you don't have any gold or provisions, then you can try to conscript people on the cheap with men-at-arms specific scrape-the-barrel decision. Here you can try to use a combined diplomacy prowess check, pay prestige if in tribal territory, but we're currently considering this to paying prestige anywhere but making it more effective in tribal realms. Interesting. Pay piety if in a theocracy or holy order lease barony, or expand your dread in order to track just a few soldiers at a time. They mentioned last dev diary the idea of bounty hunting bandits where you can challenge them to a duel or have an officer duel, or have your troops attack the bandits, but we now know why the last option isn't the best, despite not risking your own life, right? Scrape the barrel. Followers inspired, gains 25 or uninspired. Diplomacy prowess challenge. A few soldiers are better than none, and some resources like dread are much cheaper than others, like gold. So scraping the barrel every now and then can be a good idea. Several lifestyle perks also help it make it significantly more useful. Ooh, impressment in wartime recruiting. This, perhaps unsurprisingly to some of you reading, turned out to be a smidge more micro than we've intended, to the point that it became a little too much of a chore rather than a fun strategic choice during playtesting. I can see that. Specifically, this is because siege attrition armies involved in them over time. Sieges attrition armies involved in them over time, even if they go well. People get shot full of arrows, they catch cholera, they desert, etc. As a landed ruler with ample reserves, you don't notice that much that you lost a few dozen peasants, because they've probably got sons who can throw into the meat grinder instead. As an adventurer, though, our playtesters really started to notice those losses after a few counties, and that meant they were having to balance their reinforcement interactions versus their cooldowns constantly a lot more than we intended. To compensate for this, we've given adventurers a little mechanic called siege replenishment. After they win a siege, they replenish their men-at-arms by soldiers equivalent to the holding's loot value times 2. This represents new volunteers, impressed locals, and fresh mercenaries flocking to a victorious banner. Perfect. This means that an adventuring army that's doing well and winning is somewhat self-healing. whereas one that's abandoning sieges before they're finished or getting ambushed while in hostile lands suffers more over time. It also provides a route for thorough mercenaries to protect their fragile points if they have a bad battle or two, fragile profits. Implementing this got the relative levels of micro back under control, so that army reinforcement is something you plan to do occasionally, and may even have some value in pulling off if you can score some easy sieges rather than something you've penalized for doing at anything less than complete efficiency. This reminds me of Mountain Blade again. When you win a battle or a big siege and you're able to empty out their prisons to replenish your forces, at least temporarily. I mean, you may end up with a bunch of peasants, but you're able to recoup those losses from the battle or siege, sometimes even gain more troops than you started with if it goes really well. The two most valuable buildings that almost any mercenary camp will want to help manage themselves are the Proving Grounds and the Roaring Campfire, as well as likely either the baggage train or the mess tent, or for large companies, potentially both. The Proving Grounds contain numerous upgrades for improving different types of men-at-arms, each of which also unlocks a captain officer that can further boost a certain type. It also has several more situational upgrades for improving auxiliary parts of the sellsword experience. Are the Lockwagon's part of the Proving Grounds? Or Proving Grounds to replace it? Several of its upgrades. Okay, these are upgrades. Okay. The stick game. What is the stick game? I want to know what the stick game is. The Roaring Campfire doesn't contain upgrades for individual types of men-at-arms, but increases the number of knights and men-at-arms regiments you can have overall as you level up. Bartering grounds, stewardship contract rewards, pawn gear, lifestyle experience, proof of claims, ransom cages. So glad you're recording this because I keep getting pulled away. I'm sorry. It'll be up on YouTube maybe tonight? Tonight or tomorrow. Depends on when I'm able to edit everything together, because I'm gonna have to cut out ad breaks and stuff. Both the baggage train and the mess tent improve your ability to acquire and store provisions, more or less required for larger companies. The baggage train has a broad variety of upgrades, some for warfare, some for provisions, some focused entirely elsewhere, whereas the mess tent focused significantly more on improving provision acquisition. The bonuses adventurers can get for their camp do potentially give them a powerful edge in warfare, as they have to, given this is a major thing you spend your gold on outside of traveling. So something we've tried to emphasize with them is the idea of being a bit of a glass cannon, or longbow as is applicable. Pound for pound, a dedicated, well-built adventuring camp can hit harder than many other armies, but they'll have trouble recouping from serious losses. They can accrue many bonuses from camp upgrades, but over time their reinforcement costs really add up. Their troops are powerful and they have excellent access to different types of men-at-arms, but they'll be paying for provisions through the nose just to transport them around. Their knights can be deadly, but they don't have a steady stream of new high prowess characters. Sure. How much sword can a How much sword can a sellsword sell if a sellsword could sell sword? When an adventurer joins a war or wars for employers engaged on multiple fronts, they're bought in as a wartime ally in control of their own troops. At the end of the war, they're awarded gold based on their contribution score. You can already see how this works in-game at the moment. But how do they actually get involved in someone else's conflict? Most obviously, they can join ongoing wars via the Stand With Us contract. This appears on the map as usual, put out as a passive call for support by the AI without contacting anyone in specific. These wars can be more or less anything. Not all wars are ongoing when a merc gets involved, though. To press my claim contract involves a claimant contacting you out to help them start a new war. Draw iron with the righteous. Military aid is needed for 174 days. Mercenary contract requiring you to aid in war. The employer is losing by 0% in the Samogatian de jure war for the chiefdom of Skalovia. Manvadius' side has 845 soldiers, while the enemy side has 2,927. The support faction contract sees a faction turn to you for aid before they launch your struggle. The Count is fed up with Mangrove Otto of Myson's rule. He sends open invitations to all those who oppose Mangrove Otto to join the Liberty faction. And especially cruel rulers may offer you a casual contract for raid for captives against a rival ruler they simply want to suffer. Ooh. A more esoteric way is to use the offer military assistance interaction from Fate of Iberia, not DLC dependent, so you don't need Fall of Iberia? No. Fate of Iberia to unlock it. To proactively join an ongoing war that hasn't put out a contract yet. This generally pays a far bit worse than contracts put out to tender otherwise, but does let you help the shape of the map a little more easily if you want to support this little realm or screw up that snobbish former empire. It's going to be really fun just to be an interloping meddler. I was thinking last week too, it's going to be, or between this week and last, it's going to be really fun to join ongoing struggle areas. Finally, mercenary adventurers can be hired directly from the new Special Mercenaries tab in the military view. This acts roughly as a Stand With Us contract, but is player accessible, meaning that you can hire adventurers to wage your wars though they will, of course, insist on commanding themselves. Special Mercenaries tab in the military view. Fighting the hand that feeds. In addition to being settled out of war, so you choose, which we discussed earlier, adventurer mercenaries are mercenaries. Sell swords, swords which are for sale. The poison for Cusco, Cusco's poison. If they feel the war is going especially badly and it's not a war they're leading, a crusade, etc., they can switch sides. All it'll cost is their reputation and any semblance of trust with their own employer. But if it's their precious army at risk, then maybe that's worth it. In exchange, their new ally will let themselves be added as a patron, and may well even pay a small bounty for the act of treachery, though the original contract will be failed. Treacherous and cowardly adventurers may opt to simply leave a war altogether. There's no real benefit to this and various downsides, but if you're done with the contract you have no ties to besides business, well, you can just duck out. The nobility might judge you, but they can't stop you. Being a Han Christian is going to be easier than ever. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Isn't there there's that achievement to play as a Han, or was that CK2? I don't remember. It's going to be a lot easier though. I was considering that between videos too. Between dev diaries. Most court positions aren't suitable for adventurers. Even the name doesn't really work since you don't have a court and the jobs you give people mostly aren't going to be censures. Sinecures? I am vocabularizing so much today.
Sinecure.
Sinecure, position requiring little or no work, but giving the holder status or financial benefit. Sinecure. Instead, we've reflavored the mechanic from court positions to camp officers, with the idea being that your officers are actually tasked with doing the jobs you set them day after day, rather than to boast about the title and collect a little pay. A few court positions do carry over, your physician, your caravan master, and your bodyguards, but others are disabled. Since adventurers do not have a steady gold income, officers are not paid gold to avoid bankruptcy. It's assumed their pay comes in provisions and their deductions from the contracts you take, as well as some limited social cachet at camp. We've tried to tie your officers to event content and into contracts, especially skill-based contracts, so making sure you have the best people in as many positions as possible should pay more dividends than just passive modifiers. We're only like a little way halfway through the dev diary, as said Beefy. Is this going to be even longer than the last one? Yeah, we are about halfway looking at the scroll bar here. Fuck! Alright. Every adventurer has access to at least 2 officers by default. The second, your second in command, and the stooge. Your second gives you a broad range of skill bonuses based on their aptitude, similar to a jacked-up spouse. They substitute in for scheme discovery in place of a spy master, since adventurers have no counsel. The stooge is the equivalent of a court jester, except jesters at least have some interesting privileges and a level of access to a noble figure. A stooge is just a person at camp that everyone hates. The stooge can be humiliated to lose stress, though everyone has their limit with this kind of thing. Courtier wounded your child, make them the stooge. Officer screwed up a contract, demoted to stooge. Childhood bully is still in your camp, you better believe that's stoogin'. Otherwise, officers are generally unlocked by different camp buildings and upgrades, and with a few of them thus being specific to certain camp purposes. Rather than explain all these individually, I'm just going to show you each of them in turn. Oh, to be the queer mercenary polycule stooge. Second, bonuses to skills. Armor, men-at-arms toughness, those are huge bonuses. Chief Forager, provisions gain, supply duration, may aid and gather provisions, effects on adventurer realm, swords for hire camp. Master Thief, more scheme secrecy and can steal artifacts. Head Porter, provisions loss and supply limit up. Head Groom, more travel speed and movement speed. Huntsman, archer damage, ooh. Hunt success chance, improved martial education for all children. May aid and gather provisions. Kenneler, night effectiveness, enables toss to dogs execution prisoners method. Chief Engineer, siege progress up. That seems like a lot. Men-at-arms siege weapon effectiveness, that also seems like a lot, especially together. Witness, more prestige. Man Haggler. Gold gained from ransoming prisoners. Gold paid to ransom your followers down. Master Bard, more prestige. Stooge. Special events and decisions. Unlock the humiliate the stooge decision. Master of Arms. Men-at-arms damage and toughness. Train for a tournament. Increase gold, prestige, and piety gained from winning battles and sieges based on aptitude. Increase the chance of stealing an artifact after siege based on aptitude. Camp Priest, piety and learning. Quartermaster, supply and provisions. Chef Cook, hostile scheme success chance down. Oh my god, there's more. Finally, we also have a selection of officers that improve men-at-arms, discussed a little in the Merc section. These aren't very heavily integrated into content, but do give mercenary adventurers an extra edge. Each of them is unlocked by a relevant upgrade for the Proving Grounds camp building. As your captains will likely also be your knights, their powerful bonuses are to be weighted against their possible death in battle. Makes sense. YouTube, I am still listening to music, please. Thank you. Light cavalry, camels, elephants, heavy cav, horse archers, archers, heavy infantry, light cav, pikes. In the comments to part 1, a few people were asking what kind of goals we envision for adventurers that don't want to become landed straight away. And though there's an easy answer in the act of just role-playing and vibing your way through medieval life, we've got a more mechanics-focused answer too. After all, mechanics without roleplay are dry, and roleplay without mechanics is uninteresting. We've added a slew of new decisions for adventurers, and we're going to go over most of them here. We've also added foldable decision categories. I don't know if we've mentioned that yet. They're pretty great. Now you can actually trim the list. Ooh. Neat. That seems mildly useful. Major decisions. Become a great conqueror. Sometimes a mercenary has to ask themselves a few simple questions. Why am I fighting for this bastard noble? Why is my neck on the line for the 100th time for people who look down on me? Why do I bleed for their glory? Most will shrug their shoulders and accept that this is just the way things are. Those who refuse to settle for that can make history. Become a Great Conqueror allows you to access the Great Conqueror mechanics detailed in the Dev Diary 47. Ooh. 147, excuse me. It's an arduous road to match enough of the requirements, but at the end of it you'll just become one of the most potent conquerors the old world has ever seen. Far too long has my sword brought riches to others, now that earth shall runneth over with the blood for my glory. A time of great tribulation shall begin unmatched from the beginning of the world until now. Upon becoming landed, you'll gain the Conqueror trait. You'll get an army of seasoned veterans containing of retinue lancers and retinue vanguard. Ooh. You'll get the Greatest Conqueror legend seed. Get a press claim on Duchy of Bohemia. I wonder how this title's decided. Start a war against Duke Vladislav with a claim Casus Belli CB on Bohemia. And he loses opinion of you. Marshal must be 22 or above and must be a legendary figure. At least 8 of the following must be true. There's other things. Oh, here they are. Must be a strategist or gallant. Must have participated in at least 20 wars. At least 5 wars against kings or emperors. At least one of the following. 2 commander traits in Martial 28. Have at least 4,000 soldiers. Killed at least 12 characters. Completed at least 20 raids for captives or stand with us contracts. Have at least 6 knights with 18 or higher, or 12 knights with 12 or higher. You have to be good at fight. Good at fight and do big fight. The Your Faith Here path. Missionaries were originally going to be one of our camp purposes. We scraped them for the scope extremely early on in development, but the fantasy just wouldn't die. People kept bringing them up. Little nods to them crept up into other content and led us here. With this decision, you can attempt to convert large numbers of counties to your faith, getting a shot at conversion each time you travel to a new one with sensible limits, of course. Once you've started this, you cannot turn it off. That's not the Your God's Here way. But failure carries the risk of wounding each time. This makes death a likely consequence of overambition. It's not necessarily easy, but the path of a prophet never is. How possible is it going to be to start your own faith as an adventurer? Asking for a friend. Because that sounds really fun. Right? To form your own faith and spread it. At least 2 of the following must be true. You've completed pilgrimages to at least 2 unique holy sites. You are a theologian and you're a paragon of virtue. Your current location must be a holy site ruled by a ruler of that faith. That's going to be hard. Yeah, it's wild how we're halfway in and now they drop the awesome ass deal that you can become a mercenary prophet. Starting the coffee cult? No cults. Travels of Erst McVenturer. Here's one for the explorers. Innumerable people have trekked from one end of the world to the other throughout history. Most of this time, these great travelers are forgotten with nothing to mark their passing, save perhaps a few foreign coins found centuries later in an unusual place. The ones we remember long after their deaths are inevitably the nerds who stopped to write a goddamn book about it as they went. This decision allows you to be that nerd, creating a powerful, lifelike XP boosting book artifact for future generations proportional to the number of points of interest that you've visited. Sorry, powerful lifestyle XP posting. Travels of Robert Crispin. Traveled far and wide, been to places strange and outlandish, the wisdom I have accrued is immutable, a treasure for any curious and learned soul. You'll unlock a new lifestyle perk or create a book artifact that will increase lifestyle experience gain. Visited 26 points of interest. At least 2 of the following must be true. 42 points of interest. Exalted among men. 60 trade experience and wanderer. Throat's getting a little rough again. Found a holding. Ooh. Another decision that's great for an explorer or wanderer, but could be made to fit especially tonally well with even swords for hire or freebooters. With Found a Holding, you'll be able to leave your mark on the places you visit and gain passive income for your trouble, or even steal a county out from under the local ruler. As this decision is repeatable, characters can found multiple found holdings over a run. I've amassed sizable wealth. This fertile, pristine grounds look like a good place to invest in and reap the benefits in the years to come. Excuse me 1 second. Start construction of a castle. Fulfilling more optional requirements will offer additional choices during city establishment, including constructing unique buildings. Need to be in a barony that does not have a holding. Need to have city planning. The king needs to have at least 10 opinion of you, maybe the holder of the county. At least 3 of the following must be true. Gold, devotion, devoted servant, illustrious, architect, stewardship. You can do it without the gold. That's interesting. Our thanks to the person who suggested this during playtesting and previewing. Knight of the Swan. For the chivalrously inclined, you will not be left entirely in the cold. Excuse me. Let me get some water here. I said I was going to make tea for this next time, and then I didn't. Becoming Knight of the Swan or a suitable local culture animal takes a pristine reputation and a lot of prestige, but it'll net you a custom trait, permanent house modifier, beautiful artifact, and even a legend seed for Legends of the Dead owners. Said that a mysterious knight comes in a swan-driven boat to rescue those in danger. A little boat of pearly sheen and a stately knight that sat therein. Gain the trait Knight Errant. Gain the golden coat of the swan armor artifact. Knight of the Swan legend seed. Gain Swan Song for the house. Must be a legendary figure. You must have swords for hire. Do not have gallows bait. Completed 10 martial or prowess contracts of no criminal nature. Champion your culture. Another decision inspired by a camp purpose we didn't get time to make. This one never had a name, but think vigilante meets cultural hero. Like if Robin Hood led a rebellion. Which, funny enough, is what you'll be doing here. Championing your culture allows you to break your countrymen free from the rule of foreign despots. so it's especially good for a ruler-designed adventurers with an axe to grind, or a war for a single duchy, but one where you'll have a powerful bonus to siege timing throughout, and ready access to a swath of event troops at the building. If you're clever, you can manipulate things so you don't even need to fight. Get a press claim on Duchy of Bohemia. That's funny for Norman culture. Kingdom of Bohemia must be ruled by a true Norman. Start a war with a separatist uprising modifier. Levies for 15 years. Levies and some hand-picked faithful men-at-arms, or you did not start a war immediately but keep the claim. What? I'm not understanding this bullet point. If you fulfill at least 3, you'll get the duchy peacefully. Highborn Czech spouse, Catholic faith. Weak hook on the Kaiser, friend of Kaiser. Want more level fame than the Kaiser. Have the same culture as the county. Your camp is not located in the capital county. King Vladislav is not Norman. I think I understand what's going on here, but it's the way it's written in this is a little confusing. No one likes gallows bait. As you'll remember from part 1, these petty criminals are fit for the crows and little else. Maybe it's like you get a press claim and instead of doing the uprising, you do it a legitimist faction. Yeah, maybe. I think it's the paradox math that's going on here that's a little confusing with that one. Of course, that's just the nobility's POV. For a true legend of the medieval underworld, there's something to be said for infamy, and plenty of fools throng to the ranks of the lost and damned that can be drawn to serve the right master. With sufficient ranks of your petty criminal trait, you can take the decision in order to receive small numbers of event troops every time you successfully complete a criminal contract. The higher your various gallows bait XP tracks, the more troops you earn. A massive army of criminals, then find a lovely little island somewhere and take what should have been yours to begin with. I'll become the master of the gutter's sons and daughters, an army of the most heinous scoundrels bound to my cause and whim, to wreak havoc upon the weak and strong alike. Every time you complete an intrigue contract, you get a unique men-at-arms. Ooh. The amount depends on your progress in gallows bait, from 100 to 10,000 men. Bandit's benefactor. At least 3 of the following must be true. Ambitious schemer, 40 experience in various gallows bait trees. Minor decisions. Gather provisions. There's a few ways to acquire more provisions for your party. You can get them as contract rewards. You can visit a local township, more on that shortly. You can go hunting or poaching. But the more frugally minded among you will probably make ample time to simply gather provisions. This decision allows you, your chief forager if you have one, or your huntsman, to make a skill roll to try and acquire fresh provisions at no extra cost. The effectiveness depends heavily on the terrain you're in, with winter also factoring in slightly. Stepping outside my camp, I survey the surrounding farmland, seeing any signs of game or fodder. While there are plenty of mushrooms, roots, and berries to be found around the area, this is no hunter's paradise. There's nary a hair to be seen. Find some things to eat. With my snares, I'll feed us all, send out the foragers, or my hunter will trap us some game. Venturer attempts to harvest provisions from the land, but lacks a cheap forester or huntsman, so you cannot fall back on their aptitudes in lieu of his own skills. We've kept this as separate from the main hunting-poaching activity to indicate hunting smaller, less managed game, using public areas, trapping and snaring, rather than hunting larger game, and so on. Legal, questionably legal, and gray but likely to be caught areas to go hunting versus the primest, choicest woods to snag a doe, essentially. Humiliate the stooge. The stooge is a person at camp you detest, and if you're not the most compassionate of people, you can lose a lot of stress and earn a little dread by letting them know it. A slightly more sociopathic alternative to having a camp revel. Naturally, if you feel this is too mean-spirited or there's no one at camp who's wronged you enough to get the job, filling the stooge option officer position is entirely optional. Using this decision doubly so. It's there if you want it, it's not intrinsic if you don't. Be it putrid eggs, rotten vegetables, or hurtful words, the people are always in demand for some public humiliation. Lose stress, gain dread, gain a modifier, must employ a stooge. Reject inheritance and embrace responsibilities. As I mentioned earlier in the dev diary, one of the traits we've added to this DLC is Gallivanter. This is essentially a voluntary disinheritance, allowing adventurers to stay as adventurers until they choose to change to landed. Content characters and those with the carefree lifestyle perk can also access the decision should they wish to. It comes at the cost of annoying your family, but that's a high price to pay for liberty, right? What lore do fresh titles hold for me, naught but further shackles of duty and unearned wealth binding the soul tight? When I want such fripperies, I shall simply take them myself. Gain the trait Gallivanter, lose stress. You will still be able to gain land by methods other than succession, like through war or purchasing land. Every judgmental, close family or extended family character loses opinion. This person loses opinion of you, probably because they're the house head. Must be an adventurer, carefree, or content. Do not have the embraced responsibilities flag. And of course, if you change your mind, you can choose to remove the trait virtually at any time, once. Stress gain and down, stress loss up, dynasty opinion, courtly vassal, patriarchal, vassal opinion minus. Change election candidacy status. Whilst we're talking about refusing titles, a while ago I lobbied in a quick decision for the player to turn down elective titles, after many requests by a small yet understandably vocal group of players. This is largely of use in the HRE, chiefly for fans of Austria and Switzerland, who apparently really don't like getting elevated to Charlemagne's throne against their will. It will lightly offend other vassals in the realm, but nothing too major. Likewise, it's not an absolute guarantee. The larger you get within the empire, the more likely people are to ignore your wishes and vote for you anyway, though you'll have to really internally blob to completely nuke the chances. Election to rule. It's not an election, it's drawing lots for poisoned chalice. I prefer my hearth and home to the whole Sorin mess. Let it known that you do not want to be elected to a higher title. Kaiser Henrik loses opinion of you. Every vassal who is not humble or content loses opinion of you. This is great. It's kind of a... They said this isn't a significant penalty. The 25 opinion with your liege and fellow vassals is kind of a lot. It's not a game changer, but it's a lot. If you change your mind, you can change your position. Folks will just think you're a flip-flopper. Finally, no more annoying Bohemia having to politically manage the election so you don't win, right? Go fishing. We did not sit down and allocate time for a fishing minigame. Please don't kill us. One of our producers wanted to try their hand at a little more detailed scripting during their monthly personal development time. We've talked about this a little in previous dev diaries, I believe, but it's one day each month, most months at least, allocated for developers from any discipline to work on random CK3 related stuff. PDT exists to let us sidestep the usual red tape and restrictions and just make cool small things that interest us and don't have to depend on what's sensible. Previous items we got out of this include the pet system, a lot of various Jewish content and many niche regional decisions, a lot of UI and quality of life improvements, some of the more specific event backgrounds, that kind of thing. As it happens, outside the scope of the development of the game, design said sure, and now we have a small decision to go fishing. It's fairly simple, but it's an extra way for adventurers to lose stress while earning a few provisions. Cute. I love this. Again, this didn't take any time away from development, it's just a nice little decision you can take if you like. I believe there's a fair number of types of fish available to catch. They're so defensive about this. It's kind of funny, actually. Visit settlement. This is a big one. I'm actually going to hand the writing reins over to a co-worker of mine for a moment. Back with you shortly. Hello, distant Azik here for a brief spout of visit settlement talk. We had landless adventurers on a map. How do we tie adventurers in the map together? How do we make it feel like you're in a specific place at any given moment? Visit Castle Holding. Well, how about interacting with locals and visiting local settlements? Expanding on the narrative aspect, this feature focuses on going into town to conduct business. Be it meeting new people, buying provisions, or encountering random happenstances like a disgruntled former bodyguard looking for redemption. In this example, we have the deposed King Harold recently having fled to Devon. He's heading into Exeter to conduct some business with the locals. Few places are majestic as a castle, and Exeter is no exception. Cornish troops and banners are visible everywhere in the city. As we pass through the main gates, I spot a handful of guards peeking out from the embrasures above. My wife looks around with a content face, seemingly enjoying the change in scenery. Have a look at the castle, mingle with the locals in the tavern, something else. I'm done here, back to camp. Let us find that supply merchant. Moving away from the town entrance, I walk along a narrow path past some crooked homes into an adjoining open space. Ahead of me lies the path of the supply merchants and the artifact peddlers, and over yonder I also spot what looks like a town crier in the distance. Supplies, artifacts, town crier, head back. It's like a response to those who complain, hey, they added Daisy and Dark Samus and Kin as clones, but they should have added Crash Bandicoot to Smash Brothers. When realistically, even if they didn't, they still could not add Crash. I see that argument, yeah. Some factors like your highest skill or having a skilled friendly companion on your visit may affect how you can interact with certain options. When buying provisions, you can straight up buy the provisions using gold, or use your highest skill to get some provisions. Alternatively, your companion might be thrifty. With the stalls still brimming with items, supply merchant Stefanu picks up a stray onion that tumbled off the edge of the counter. I subtly raise my eyebrows to him and mark my return as there's a glint in his eyes as he looks up at me and down. The finest in all of Cagliari. I'll buy some of these and some of those. I can move some of those for you for a small cut. Adventurer attempts to cut a deal on provisions using stewardship on a local merchant. Provides distraction for his wife to commit theft. From onions to fabrics, fireworks to sewing thread, the supply merchant has it all. The stall is filled to the brim with whatever we might need for a night in the wilds. I move a bit closer to draw her attention, and she lights up as she looks at me with a friendly smile. What do you need? Adelgeth cracks her knuckles and looks at me, discreetly nodding in the direction of the supplies, mumbling. Care to make a distraction? Buy some of these, some of those. Take the supplies of the entire stall. Oh, clumsy me. Let's head back. Intrigue challenge. Inside Visit Settlement, you can move back and forth between locations. Once you're done with the supply merchant, you can navigate to the main square to go visit the castle. As we return from the supply merchant, an afternoon breeze trails along Exeter's main square. On my left, local peasants are returning from service to a nearby stone church. The minister standing at the entrance gives an inscrutable smile as I pass by. Once in a while, you may encounter skilled or strange characters that you may or may not want to have join your camp. Feel free to approach them at your leisure. The Exeter Castle grounds are, as expected, furnished for martial purposes, with casts of arrows, stray pole weapons, a handsome stable, and the like. Training ground is just outside the gates, and a handful of garrison guards are dawdling around the entrance, either half asleep or polishing their weapons. On the other side of the courtyard, a man is roaring at some other men, and it was not my fault. The argument is getting more heated, and I keep probing eye on the situation. Wonder what they're arguing about. Castle Square lovely, and what's this? A kerfuffle. Let's approach them and find out. From the yelling, I pick up the name Minifrida, and as the accusatory men depart, I follow Minifrida down an alleyway. He immediately starts unloading animal carcasses from a shabby cart, muttering to himself. One noble loses his life on your watch, and how was I supposed to know the wine was... He slams his fist into the cart, frustrated. The dishonored bodyguard gives me a weathered look as I approach. What do you want? I couldn't even keep a flipping plant alive. Come work for me, join me, and I'll restore your reputation. This is your chance at redemption, or on second thought. As the former King of England, I am looking for a bodyguard. Moving us back to the castle after recruiting my new follower, we're done here for the time being. I just realized I left the stove on fire unbanked back at the camp. We should head back to the main square so that we can leave. 2 to ads, thank you. Bye Exeter until next time. Additionally, different types of holdings have different actions. Castles focus on martial opinions you might need as a landless adventurer, improving prowess, reinforcing men-at-arms regiments, recruiting additional military-focused camp members. Temples focus on health and religion, partake in healing cures, donate to the local place of worship, or contemplate religion. City is focused on commerce and equipment. Buy cheaper provisions, sell artifacts at a higher rate, or buy a weapon, set of armor, or trinket to improve your character. Tavern is present in all holding types. You can hang out with the locals in any given location. I was hoping I was right at the end of this, so never mind. And that's basically it. Brief look at the View Settlement feature. Though it's best experienced by discovering it yourself, so enjoy and have fun playing as a landless adventurer. Alright. So, we're going to run ads. Everybody get up, stretch, get some water, make a sandwich, make some coffee. Take care of your meat vessel. You only have one of them, and it's important for no other reason than that. We'll be back in 3 minutes to finish this up. It looks like we're almost done. See you in a sec. Oh, sorry, I forgot the Christmas music is still on in this version. In this playlist, I mean. Alright, let's get back to it. And we're back. Not quite Christmas in July, close enough, really. Don't worry, this may be a long dev diary, but we'll be done by Christmas. Haha. So there's an adventurer in your back realm and you don't want there to be. What can you do? Simple enough as it happens, you can expel any adventurer from your realm, including your domain and any of your vassals' lands via character interaction, which will stop contracts from generating there, force them to leave, and force them out if they ever end up back there. Any contracts they were currently taking or had discovered in your lands are immediately invalidated, criminal or not. Expulsion is a long-lasting opinion, so it'll reset either if either of you die. If many, many years pass too, that'll reset it too. I'm just waiting for the tea to brew. They have 3 months to begin exiting from the date of you sending the letter, and if they have no army, they're forced to go. If they have even a paltry military force, they can try to stay, but the potential risks are dire. Refusing an eviction order means you make an imprisonment attempt against them as soon as the 3 months have expired. If this fails, the adventurer begins an offensive war against you, the evicting ruler. You're considered the defender because this is your land. They're just squatting in it. Cool. What's the, I wonder what the CB is for that. A landed ruler expels an adventurer, giving them a few months to vacate. If the adventurer wins, they've utterly defeated your realm and usurp it as though it was a conquest. Answered my own question. If the landed ruler wins, they imprison the adventurer and destroy their camp permanently. Refusing an eviction notice, no matter how it ends, is a very serious affair. You either leave or accept that, one way or another, your camp is going no further. Once an eviction has been accepted or a white peace in the war, any lands controlled by the evicting ruler can no longer be traveled to by the adventurer. They can be traveled through, largely for mechanical reasons, but cannot be used as an end destination and won't generate contracts till the opinion expires, say a convenient assassination. If an adventurer ends up in lands they've been exiled from for any reason, they are automatically derouted out of them again. Rulers are much more likely to use evictions on adventurers that they dislike, such as troublesome missionaries or those who've offended them via gallows bait. Once you've got your foot in the door with a ruler, they're vulnerable to all sorts of wheeling and dealing. We represent this with the make a request character interaction. Usable on patrons or close or extended family and your consorts, this allows adventurers to just really aggressively mooch from a target. Just get right in there and blag your heart out, burning opinion with your patron in exchange for resources. The resources you'll likely make most often are for restocking your provisions or providing you with extra gold, presumably phrased as a loan that you'll totally pay back. These aren't a substitute for contracts, but they can supplement your income or help you bounce back when times are tough. Mini contract gives you bonus opinions with a patron on completion, and a fair few reward a hook upon critical success that make a request will automatically trade in for your rewards. A more interesting reward is to have them help you recruit a random men-at-arms regiment accessible to them, providing another way to build your army laterally or to loan you a knight for a few years. Most notably, this is the only way to even access the marriage interaction with landed rulers, either for yourself or your followers. Finally, if they're eligible, you can try to wrangle further contracts out of a patron. You can use this to build relations by continuing to do good jobs for the same characters. Perhaps not too relevant if they're a counter baron, but if you manage to get in good with a king, make a request for provisions, for gold, men-at-arms, knight, marriage, or for a contract. Get evicted from every county on the map speedrun. Let me try some of this tea. Still way too hot. For balance reasons, make a request requires you to be in close geographical proximity to the target's capital, and much closer than diplomatic range. This helps to stop you from traveling to India only to teleport gold and reserves from, say, Scotland. If you want a favor from someone, you need to travel closer to them to get it. We've actually applied this restriction to a few key interactions, but make a request is the main one. That said, this is currently a little too easy on our end. It should cost more opinion than it does in these screenshots, and arguably some prestige too, so we'll very likely be increasing those before Roads to Power releases. How much opinion is it costing? 25? Yeah. Yeah, it could cost more. Alright, we've got a couple of small elephants in this particular room that we saved for last. Hopefully that means it won't put you off on the other stuff in the dev diary, but apologies if this leaves a sour taste in your mouth. First is the biggie, raiding. Adventurers cannot raid, and relatedly, their camp is not a siegeable thing on the map. I know this is upsetting, but we just could not make it work. Raiding is by far and away the easiest way to earn gold, and the only drawback being the need to cart your gold back to your capital. But when that capital is itself a cart, that becomes uniquely problematic to balance or teach the AI to deal with. Now, we could put in oodles of edge cases handling for things like raising your army inside a realm that's currently raiding, or moving your capital to follow your raiding army province to province so the gold instantly and safely reaches your treasury, but we couldn't counter every possible exploit. Even one would utterly break the entire economy. It would still have ended up almost absurdly easy to game the system by moving your camp somewhere within easy reach of a border, nipping over it, nabbing loot, and then returning before the AI could even conceivably try to catch you. I get why they did this, and we have crime contracts, so yeah. I'm not too upset by this. I wish we could raid. I get it. And border raids are a thing. Adventurers just raiding over the border, notably in the border of Scotland and England, was historically a very much a thing that they could take inspiration from, but I completely get why they're not here. A little sad, but not upset. Siegeable camps likewise offer too many headaches for a robust implementation. Any number of camps could be in the same location, and as camps aren't holdings, we would have had to do a huge amount of work just to support them being basically siegeable at all. Only then to have to work out what happens and how we display it visually. If 3 adventurers are on different sides of a war in one county, one is in a different war and 2 more are in the same county but not involved in anything, and a million other configurations. That's before getting into the verisimilitude of why it would take anything other than 1 day to siege a camp if you have, say, a single bombard, and consequently how adventurers would ever be able to win a war when reaching full occupation score against them would just be a matter of walking into their capital once. This one I'm much more behind. I don't think there's any reason to be able to siege camps. Rather than deliver these 2 aspects in a substandard condition, we've elected to avoid them entirely. Adventurers with a martial bent earn their coin from mercenary work and similar contracts, and adventuring camps are treated as not being worthwhile military targets. Neither of these is a reflection of historical reality, only of gameplay necessity, and I say that in terms of gameplay necessity. I don't see any reason why you need to be able to siege an adventurer's camp. Obviously, it happened historically, and it wouldn't even really be a siege, it would just be more of a raid or an attack. The other smaller thing to address, child adventurers. We don't support this generally. Narratively, literally anyone else would be in charge instead, but we hadn't hard banned it. You can start as an adventuring child, but you won't be game overed if it happens to you in gameplay. You can't start as an adventuring child, but you won't be game overed if it happens to you in gameplay. Thank you for your patience. I get it. This is a gameplay concession. You have to make that concession to the mechanics. It's a little silly. It's a little silly to have a 4-year-old bastard inherit a mercenary company or a missionary company or a group of explorers when the second in command would just take over. Right, that brings us to the end of our tour of Landless Adventurers. There's a teensy bit more to talk about with our bookmark characters specifically, but we've decided to kick that a little bit to the future. Probably whenever we go over the changes we made to schemes, though the schedule's semi-flexible. I hope this has been an illuminating little tour of the feature and that it's gotten some of you reasonably excited for the DLC. We're pretty excited to show it to you and so soon. As ever, I'll be around in the thread's commons for a couple of hours to take questions, notes, and polite recriminations. Highlights will be passed on to the rest of the team like usual. No, I haven't seen Berserk. Please stop asking. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I can't help it. They read you like a book. They really did. And I wasn't even one of the people asking, other than in these streams and videos. I'm sorry. Look, it's my favorite manga, okay? I literally have like a little Berserk, little gut standee right behind me right now that you can't see. It's a problem, okay? Getting into Berserk because of Funger. Don't apologize for enjoying critically acclaimed Berserk. I'm gonna apologize for enjoying it too much. That's just me. Alright. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Follow me on Twitch, because that's where this was recorded. And, like and subscribe and all that douchey shit that I'm supposed to say. If you got this far, comment below, yada yada yada. The rest of us, we're gonna get into the game now, so I'm gonna end the recording. Yeah, and join our Discord. I'll try to remember to put a like in the comments of the YouTube, and if I don't, it's on Twitch. So come there. All right.